Do you know what it's like when something is so close that you forget to see it? I had lived in Upper Manhattan for 10 years when our wonderful Zoom tech Phil reminded me that I really should see the cloisters, the beautiful medieval part of the Metropolitan Museum uptown here. Probably wouldn't have done it if he hadn't prompted me. And our guest today is like that. She's a treasure who's so close to so many of us in the animal rights movement that we just know she's here. So her name has been on our list as a special spiritual guest from the very start of the Compassion Consortium. And we just finally got her in today in connection with the Parliament of the World Religions that Reverend Sarah mentioned. Judy has been working very, very hard on that with so many wonderful, dedicated animal people. And although I know, Judy, it turns out now that for personal reasons, you won't actually be there in Chicago with your body, but you will so very, very much be there with all of us that you have enabled to be there and all your wonderful ideas and all your wonderful work. So it is my pleasure to welcome the author of Peace to All Beings and Homo Ahimsa, co-founder of the Interfaith Vegan Coalition, and so much more, Judy Carman.
Thank you, Victoria. It's so wonderful to be here. My goodness, everything that has happened so far has just been so uplifting. I love that song.
Wasn't that an amazing song? Yeah, we had some
yes.
really good song pickers. So,
Yeah,
and you know what?
was
We picked
so
some
good.
pretty good special spiritual guests too, because we have you. So let us just jump right in and find out a little bit about your religious tradition, your background, and what you see today as your spiritual path.
Okay, well, that's a kind of a long story that I'll make very short. I kind of grew up in the Episcopal Church, where people were going hunting and wearing furs and all of that. And there was something off about it, but I wasn't sure what. This was back in the 50s and 60s. And I had never heard of vegetarianism or anything like that. I ended up becoming an actual not believing in God at all, for about 15 years. And but then some things happen in my life, divorce and those sorts of things that have a tendency, like with sailors, to make you start looking at maybe God is there. And so I had a real spiritual awakening at that point, and that was kind of around the time I became vegetarian, which I did that for a number of years before I went vegan. But I wasn't really looking at the connection between veganism and my faith at that point. I was looking at Native American religions, all the different religions. I was avoiding Christianity because of my experience with Episcopalianism. And so I kind of pulled a lot of truth out of all the religions that I studied. And it looked to me like it was pretty much the same. The golden rule: be kind, love one another, God is love. But I still, as I was becoming vegetarian, I was trying to put those things together. So how can all these people, religious people, be eating animals and causing so much cruelty to them? And I grew up in a house where my dad was a big game hunter. And so there were heads and rugs, like a polar bear rug and a zebra rug on the floor, and heads all around on the walls. And we ate a lot at the Golden Ox, which was right by the basically the slaughterhouse in Kansas City when it was in the middle of town, downtown. And I know, Victoria, you probably remember the Golden Ox, but then I discovered the Golden Temple in Kansas City. So I went from the Golden Ox to the Golden Temple. And the Golden Temple was an Indian restaurant. And that's where a lot of us learned how to eat vegetarian. What do you actually do? How do you do that? Because remember, this is Kansas City, so there wasn't a lot of information there. And back then, oh my goodness, there was maybe 1 or 2 vegetarian cookbooks. Can you imagine? Some of you young folks probably can't even imagine that, because there are thousands of vegan cookbooks now, but back then there weren't very many. So we were kind of on our own and learning how to eat that way. So that kind of, well, to kind of sum it up, I guess I started seeing my faith as simply love, that God is love. Love is everywhere. We breathe in love with every breath. And I learned also that Jesus was an animal liberator. And there are some well-known people in our movement who have posited that Jesus's family was vegan, that they were against animal sacrifice, and that he very well could have been crucified for freeing the animals in the temple. So that really got me going. And so Jesus is really my guy. And I don't really follow a lot of the dogma, but I just kind of try to keep it simple. I'm not a Bible scholar at all. And so but to me, it is so simple, because most religions, including Christianity, abide, or at least try to abide by the golden rule. And that fits perfectly, because the golden rule is veganism. And it is ahimsa, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So I guess that's pretty much where my faith is at this point, and it feels really good.
Well, it sounds really good. So how did your connection to animals, your concern for animals start? Was it because of the heads and body parts in your house, or did you just show up on Earth caring about all beings?
I think we all show up on Earth that way. I really do. But I think it gets pounded out of us in many, many ways, from what we eat and just so many things, because the cruelty to animals is compartmentalized by the vast majority of people. So whereas they will say, if you ask them, would you hurt an animal on purpose? They're going to say no. But by compartmentalizing what they're eating and many other things, wearing and so forth, they kind of turn a blind eye to that. But I think that I'm just extremely grateful that I was somehow blessed with being able to see through those programs that we're all subjected to in this culture and many, many other cultures. And so I don't know exactly why, but I'm very grateful. I had a horse at one time, and my parents wanted me to ride her in the American Royal, and the trainer wanted me to cut the tendon in her tail, because that makes the tail stand straight up, right? Or I mean, the first part of the tail, and then the rest hangs down, and then shave her mane. Well, to be a 3-gated horse, and there's no way I wouldn't let them do that. So I entered the American Royal thing with a horse that did not look like the other horses. They were all prancing, lifting their feet high, because they had been harmed to make them do that. and their tails were up and their manes were short. And of course, I didn't win, but I didn't know. I didn't know what it was. I just am grateful that somehow I was able to kind of scoot through that and not get overly programmed. I'm certainly still way programmed. I'm still discovering programs that I'm getting ready to let go of, but somehow I was able to see through some of that.
Oh, that's a grace. So you're bringing back a lot of memories to me growing up in Kansas City. And I know now you live in a small town in Kansas. And these days, we're told that people in small towns and people in big cities can't talk, but we're talking. And how do you see the apparent lack of charity among humans, even among animal people? And how do you see healing for that?
Okay, that is a very big question. And I think that's probably one of my main visions, is to bring that harmony in and to bring hope in into people's hearts. And because the world is kind of in a crazy mess right now. And I believe, I totally agree with Teilhard de Chardin, who said, and I'll read it, the present chaos is not the end of the world, but the labor pains of a new earth and a new humanity coming into a new form. And so I just really believe that, and I want to share that with everyone. I feel like the golden rule is our guiding light, which, as I said, is also veganism, is also ahimsa. And I wrote Homo Ahimsa to help people understand that our natural state of being is love. We came here to be love. We came here to create love in this world. And so the fact that there's so much lack of love right now, and hate and division and all of the things that are going on right now, is to me like the nest has just really gotten stirred up. And the key, I think, at this point in time is for people to go, okay, so I totally disagree with that person, but I'm going to listen to that person, because we're trying to change everything. We're trying to let go of all the old programs, but we don't know what to put in their place, because we are raising our level of consciousness. We are in a time when the time of the paradigm shift, and Charlotte, I know, will talk about that more. We are in the midst of a paradigm shift, a huge one. Now, some people don't see that and may not be able to understand exactly what's going on, but I feel like enough of us are rising up in our awareness and questioning a lot of the old programming that basically is based on dominating the earth, dominating animals, and dominating people whom we think are weaker or less than we are. That has been our worldview for the last 10,000 years at least. And we are rising up to this new plane of consciousness where we're understanding that we are all equal, that we are all beings of love, and that we are here to be love for each other and really create a new world, bring heaven to earth. But that's going to require a lot of inner work for all of us. And that's another thing I talk about in the Homo Ahimsa book. And I just realized I haven't defined ahimsa for anyone who doesn't know what it means. it's the Sanskrit word for non-harm. Himsa means harm, and ah is non-harm. So, and of course, we can extend that out to nonviolence and love and kindness. Go ahead.
So in that book, you actually are proposing a different kind of evolution, that human evolution is to proceed in the direction of more and more nonviolence. And I would say more and more expression of divinity in the human race. A lot of people would say, it looks like it's going backwards. So tell us your evolutionary projection.
Well, in a way, it is backwards in a way, because many creation stories from indigenous people and most of the major religions start out with the idea that all beings lived in harmony with each other and no one ate anyone else. So that is in our psyche, that idea that we could live like that we could go back to the garden. But I think that we are coming to a place of higher consciousness than I'm not saying that exactly right, but in the sense that we are moving from that place and then going through this long period of violence against each other and against animals and the earth, and then coming to this new place where we see, okay, we can bring heaven to earth, but we're going to do it in such a way that human beings are transformed, so that the evidently there was some sort of little thing in the human brain way back then that took human beings from living in peace with all beings to going, hey, maybe I can, kill that person, or I don't like that animal, so maybe I'll just kill that animal, or maybe I'll eat that animal. There was something in the human brain at that time that led us on that dark path. And I believe that we are on the precipice now where we are going to rise up and purify our brains, let's say, or our minds, because this is what our spirits have been leading us to do all these years. And so we have the spiritual assistance now, I believe, to purify our minds, whatever you want to call it, that energy field that connects all of us to all beings, all life, and understands perfectly that we're all equal, that there's no separation and there's no reason to do harm or to dominate. We're partners. And so that's where we're heading, I believe. And all this chaos, I think, that we're seeing is a sign that we can get there if we just hang in there and keep being love. And what you all are doing with the Compassion Consortium is a big piece of that, giving people, anyone, regardless of their religious affiliation or belief system, to come and be together and see this truth. And that's what we need to do, is be together and share this and know and believe and have faith.
Wow. Well, that's why we're here, and our time is just about up. But I do know that it meant a lot to you to be part of the Parliament of the World's Religions. And now that you're not going to be there physically, just give us a little line, Judy, as we leave, on what you think it means that there's going to be such a big vegan presence, such a big animal rights presence at this gathering of all the world's religions.
Well, it's just huge. It's so exciting. And I've been involved in the planning, and I'm going to continue to be involved in the planning with the Interfaith Vegan Coalition, and which everybody, that's interfaithvegancoalition.org, lots of resources there, and the Compassion Consortium and other entities. But I was at the Parliament in Toronto in 2018. And we had a booth for the Interfaith Vegan Coalition. And we got so much interest. And there were a few vegan talks. And we were able to show a Prayer for Compassion film off campus because it wasn't, scheduled in. But this year, well, we started a year ago and we said, okay, we're going to have a huge vegan presence there this time, much bigger than what we had before. We'll have tables, information tables. We're going to show 2 films, Prayer for Compassion and The Land of Ahimsa are both going to be shown there and are on the schedule. There will be many, many speakers, including you all, and there will be some panels, and also the traveling art exhibit that shows has a panel for each religion that Lisa Kemmerer curated. That's going to be there. And so it's going to be phenomenal. We're going to have a special handout also with all the vegan talks so that people can see exactly, where they might go to hear us talk about how important it is for the world's religions and faith traditions to align their values of the golden rule with veganism. And so that's going to be a major thing, a major message that we're going to be getting across. And there's also going to be a banquet, and it will be all vegan there.
Yay.
So yeah. It's
We
going to be great.
We do such a good job with the food,
Yes.
getting to people on the soul level and the stomach level. Judy Carman, bless you, bless your work. Thanks for being part of this wonderful upward progression of the universe.
It's lovely being here with you all.